Hey guys, it's Sir Camp-A-Lot here. We're doing something different today. I have with me Nate. He's a Snow Peak archivist and also the founder of Korogi. We just hang out by the campfire today, and we just wanted to do a different format to talk about camping gear and answer some of your questions about camping gear. So Nate, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and introduce yourself to our audience here?
Yeah, so my name's Nate. I've been camping since I was a toddler. I've lived in Portland my whole life and really got into, I guess we call it the Snow Peak style of camping. You know, I think like a lot of people kind of during COVID, so about 5 years ago now. And just natural storyteller, that's who I am. And I like being able to connect things and tie things together. And I think the relationship between Snow Peak as one company, but really like America and camping in general as like a, I think calling it a gift is probably overstating it, but just there's always a back and forth. America shares a little bit of camping know-how with another country. That country iterates on it and then shares something back. And so being able to unpack that through the story of Snow Peak has been really special.
Yeah, definitely. Snow Peak style camping has definitely made us become friends, and we met through a Snow Peak event. So I'm pretty thankful for it. But you know, summer season is coming. It's starting to be spring, and summer season's coming. So a lot of people ask me, you know, if I was new to Snow Peak, where do I get started with my Snow Peak equipment? What should I do? What should I buy? What should I be on the lookout for? What do you think, Nate?
You know, I think there's the thing that I always really appreciate about this style of camping in general is that there's kind of some core starting points to it that can just be extrapolated on kind of into infinity. You know, if you start with a basic IGT kitchen setup, like the Snow Peak IGT starter pack, you have everything you need to go out that same day and make a great meal while you're camping. Same thing with like the Takibi fire pit. Like you start with that and you know that no matter where you're camping, you can have a bonfire. But then it becomes really easy to start thinking about how things can connect together. Can you extend the IGT frame off of the Takibi?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, I totally agree with you. The IGT frame is kind of like Snow Peak's core. You can build around that, but I also want to add, just like what you said, that my first purchase of Snow Peak item was actually the Takibi Fire and Grill, and I think for me it's like really awesome because I can go somewhere and I can set up a fire pit anywhere at the campsite for my convenience, and it's easy to clean. As you can see here, we're enjoying Takibi right here with this awesome product right here, and but I want to circle back to the IGT. So what is in the IGT starter set, as you mentioned? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so Snow Peak introduced this maybe about a year and a half, 2 years ago. It's actually a pretty recent product. And prior to that, if you wanted to get an IGT, you had to decide what frame you wanted. Do you want the entry, the slim, the 3-unit, the 4-unit, the 2-unit, now the collapsible, right? What leg height? There's 4 different leg height options. And then what stove do you want? Do you want barbecue? Do you want gas powered? What cutting surfaces? Really, the sky's the limit. And I think for a lot of people, you know, for you and I, it's just what we know.
Right.
But for a lot of people, it can be really intimidating.
Yep.
So the starter kit is, you get the 4-unit frame, you get legs, I think they're standing height legs, you get a stove, a cutting board, a knife, wash basin, as well as some just stainless steel bins that you can, I use mine for like, I'll be chopping, and if it's something I want to keep for cooking later, it goes maybe on one side, and if it's the garbage part of the onion, goes into the other side. It just makes it really easy to like store stuff. And so it's one click, like you buy that and you're done and you're ready to go. Yeah,
definitely. It has all the components to make a kitchen get a kitchen up and running and ready to go. But I definitely want to talk a little bit about, like, it has the sink or the waterproof 1-unit where it uses as a sink. Now, are there any alternatives to that you can think of, or that you use?
There's a lot of stuff out there that can kind of go beyond that. I think the wash basin that Snow Peak offers is great. You know, it's rubber, it's flexible, and it also has a mesh screen on it. And for me, that comes in really handy because what I like to do is I use a stainless steel sink. That's a 1-unit sink. There's a lot of brands out there that offer them. Nature Hike is a really popular one. I offer one through Korogi. And really, like, just honestly, there's not a whole lot of difference from them. You know, my sink is no better, no worse than any other sink out there. And so you really can't go wrong. But what I have done is built then a drain adapter so that you can either run it to a hose and send it off on its way over here and get rid of that wastewater. But the other thing I do is use then that flexible 1-unit wash basin as a gray water repository. So because it's got that mesh screen on it, if any like food or anything, it lands, it gets caught, and then you just have your water. You can take that, you can dump it. If you have a gray water system with your camp, you can reuse it in some way. And so it's super convenient.
Yeah, I also use the Nature Height sink, and I've been using it for like a few years now. It's really great. I use a Dometic faucet to kind of pump water and get that going, but definitely I also drain mine. A lot of times I just take mine out and just like dump it. But it's definitely, I prefer the Nature Height sink over the Snow Peak 1-unit waterproof gear back. And nothing against the 1-unit gear back, but it's just like, I just prefer something a little more solid and drainable at the bottom.
Because that Snow Peak one, it holds onto the water.
Yeah,
so once it gets full, it can be a little awkward to get out, especially if you're like cooking or something. You have to then take out other pieces to get it out and then dump it. So there's some more convenient options out there.
For sure. Okay, so let's take a look at what else we have on our topic list right now. So you mentioned that it comes with, I think it comes with the standing height IGT legs. What are our options, and what do all of these heights mean for IGT?
Yeah, so I think there's the 4 standards, right, which Snow Peak really pioneered, and they're built off of the Snow Peak layout system that was developed in 1986. So Snow Peak tables from 1986 pretty seamlessly integrate with a Snow Peak table that you go out and buy today.
Wow.
Which is one of the things I really appreciate is that longevity. I'm never worried that something I'm buying is all of a sudden going to be useless because it's been iterated on in a way that deals with like planned obsolescence and that sort of thing. So starting at the bottom, you have 300 millimeters, which is the ground height. And that is for like sitting on the ground. Maybe you have one of the Snow Peak cushions, or maybe you're just sitting on the floor. You have a mat in your tent or your shelter.
And it's lower than this.
It's lower than this. This is the 400, so this is the next step up. This is the low height. I really like this. It's great for the Takibi fire pit. It's also great when you then can like have the IGT frame coming off of this and connected to it, and so you can have a gas stove in addition to maybe you're doing some grilling over the fire, the coals. Next step up is then the 660 millimeters, which is the sitting height, and that's traditional table. Tabletop would come over my knees, and then you have Snow Peak standing height at 830 millimeters, which is a really great option as well. I know a lot of like traditional camping, the camping that I grew up with, you're always standing when you're cooking.
For sure. Yeah, that's definitely standing height is a very comfortable height to stand and cook with. But what about like people that are really tall, like typical North Americans? Like there's quite a bit of people over 6 feet. Is there anything to kind of solve that?
Yeah. So Korogi, we recently released just at the end of last year. What we're calling our XL legs. So we offer 3 legs. They're adjustable, and you have adjustable short, adjustable long, and then adjustable XL. And within that range that we were just talking about, the short covers 4 different heights from 400 to 660. The long will go from 500, which is a height that we haven't really talked about here yet. And that's starting to get into like the bigger ecosystem of IGT and Snow Peak, up to the standing height. And then the XL leg will go from 660 sitting height at the lowest to the standing height that Snow Peak offers to then American counter height. American counter height is a new taller height that we've released. It is about 36 inches. So if you're used to your kitchen counters at home, this is what that height feels like. It's about 3.5 inches taller than Snow Peak's standing height. And it's amazing what that little difference does in terms of comfort. For me personally, I'm 6 feet tall. I get a much more comfortable like angle when I'm cutting.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And I've also done something called the palm test, which is where if I'm standing, what does it take to have my hand flat on the table? And with the Snow Peak standing height, my arm is at full extension. Whereas with the counter height, I'm able to have comfort. But I'm really happy with how they came out. They offer full integration because they have those other heights. If you are more experienced, if you already have a kitchen, you're not having to buy everything fresh, right? You can easily connect them to your friend's standing height kitchen or sitting height kitchen just as easily.
And there's the height adjuster where you can just navigate between those different heights. So But definitely I try out the XL legs from Korogi, and they're definitely really awesome. The difference is very subtle, but definitely makes it a more comfortable experience while you're cooking, especially when you're cutting your food and prepping your food. Definitely, that's a great addition to your IGT setup. Yeah. Okay, so let's take a look at some other topics here. Let's talk about titanium products, because Snow Peak is known for their titanium products. What's your favorite titanium product?
I think my favorite product is the mini spork, the short spork, which was discontinued a number of years ago. They're now wildly expensive, like $130 is I think about what they sell for if you can find one.
Wait, how short is the short spork?
Oh, it's just a little baby.
Oh, okay, yeah. So it's a little bit, it's shorter, but it's like a little thicker looking?
Yeah, it's kind of stubby. It's actually designed to fit into the Wabuki Snow Peak chopstick case. So you can have your chopsticks and your spork kind of all in one.
Oh, okay, cool.
It's very weird, but it's that kind of perfect blend for me of like esoteric Snow Peak. We're just going to try something different here.
Yeah, definitely. Well, my favorite is the double wall 450 titanium cup.
Classic.
And that's kind of like classic. The reason why I like it so much is that not only do I use it at home, at camp, but I also use it at home. So, I use this on a regular basis, and it looks really beautiful when it's anodized. So, it's kind of like my go-to cup to drink everything in. It keeps your beer cold, your coffee warm, and, what more can I say? It's definitely my favorite piece.
The insulation goes a long way. I think, like, I don't know if you did, but I definitely started with the single wall. And the single wall is fine. If I'm drinking a whiskey or something, it works great if I'm not worried about that ambient temperature. But that insulation really helps.
Oh, yeah,
in both ways. It keeps my hand from getting too cold or too hot as well.
Definitely. I mean, single wall is also really awesome. I mean, you can put it on a burner and just cook or warm up your beverage with that. So, yeah, definitely it is a great product overall. What about products that you wish Snow Peak made in titanium? Oh, yeah, hi Chloe. She's here.
Well, we were joking around earlier that where's the titanium Takibi and titanium Jacaro fire table? Yeah. But I think maybe a little bit more realistically, I would really love to see some titanium IGT pieces.
Oh, okay.
That's a crossover that hasn't really happened yet, but like a titanium frame for the flat burner stove that you've got hanging over there, titanium inserts.
Yeah.
I think it's a little unnecessary if I'm being honest, but I think it'd be really cool to see.
Yeah. Well, I like the Snow Peak tableware set, tableware set, and I have a bowl right here, but I wish if the whole set came in titanium. That would be really awesome because I would love to anodize it and just kind of make it my own, so that way when I do take it to group camping, it doesn't get mixed up with other people, because obviously I can tell my own anodizing pattern. So,
or you could have one color, your wife could have a color, your daughter could have her own color. It could be super fun for the whole family.
Yeah, for sure. It's a lot of fun. So let's talk about some of the entry-level tents. There's been talks about, the Alpha Breeze is obviously the best-selling tent, but are you an Alpha Breeze guy, Nate?
I am an Alpha Breeze guy, because I can stand up in it.
That's great. How tall are you again?
6 foot.
6 foot, yes. I'm 5'11". I think I shrunk a little bit, so I guess I could be 5'10". But I'm an Amenity Dome kind of guy. So Amenity Dome was my first tent that I purchased from Snow Peak, and I've been using it for its price. The price point is very good. It's very entry level. It's very affordable. It's easy to set up. And my reasoning is that I don't hang out in my tent. I mean, come on, Nate, do you hang out in your tent?
All the time.
Okay, you cook in your tent?
A solid afternoon nap, some reading maybe, but no.
Maybe make coffee or something like that. So that's my reason, is that I'm not really hanging out in my tent, so I'm just in there to sleep, or maybe I change, but I guess I really don't have to stand up because I'm not 6 feet.
That's it.
I would just hunch like this and try to make the best out of the Amenity Dome and stand up in it. So I'm an Amenity Dome guy. What about your reasoning for the Alpha Breeze?
So I don't want to poo-poo the Amenity Dome. It's a great tent. It's a very classic dome style tent. The Alpha Breeze is, for me though, it has a square footprint, which gives me a little bit more space in the corners, and we bring cots to sleep on. And so depending on how we have that set up, it allows you to push the cot really into the edges of the tent, which I like for creating more floor space. But also, yeah, I'm not doing jumping jacks in the tent, right? We're not having a standing debate session, but being able to change my clothes or like stretch in the morning and be able to stand up.
Sure.
I do really, really love it. And then also I really appreciate, it's got a little bit bigger built-in kind of vestibule area with the kind of awning tarp thing that goes off of it. And you open up those side panels on a hot day and you get, that's why it's called the Alpha Breeze, right? Like it really lets the air flow through. Well,
I will admit to that the Amenity dome, if you open the front awning and try to like hang out underneath it, is quite small, and you like literally if you stand up slightly, you hit your head against the awning. So I'll admit to that. It is pretty a low level tent. I will admit to that. But then again, I either have my Amenity dome and then I pair it up with a tarp, or I have my big shelter. So still gonna hold true to my fandom for the Amenity dome.
I will concede that you can actually dock your tent. The Alpha Breeze does not dock with anything else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, yep. All right, so now let's talk about what's the difference between, you hear the word tent and shelter a lot when it comes to like Snow Peak, and I think that Snow Peak is a very special case for using those terminology. So what is the difference between a tent and a shelter?
I actually don't know, like, if there's a dictionary definition. My differentiating point, or my point of view for how I distinguish them, is a shelter doesn't have a floor. And I don't know if that's actually true, but generally speaking, a shelter to me is a bigger vestibule. You can move around. Standing inside of it is not unexpected. In fact, it's the opposite. Like, you should be able to stand in it. And it's really more of a congregation space. Like, a tent is private, it's personal, it's intimate. This is where... If a tent is a bedroom, this is the family room. This is the living room, right? You can be cooking in there. You can have tables set up in any different number of configurations. I don't know. That's how I make that distinction. I don't know if your point of view is any different.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you. Basically, a shelter is basically a tent without any flooring. And that might be odd for a lot of people because, typically you buy a tent and it has, like, flooring on the bottom. That's pretty common,
it's a full
right?
box, right?
Yeah, it's a full box. But definitely Snow Peak has this very unique space in which, it offers a tent that doesn't have any floor, and then you can add on an inner room if you want that privacy. But a lot of times shelters offers flexibility where you can use the shelter as just a hangout area rather than a place to sleep in. So I definitely think it's a very unique Snow Peak kind of thing that Snow Peak does.
Yeah.
So definitely. So speaking of which, are you a tarp person or a shelter person? Which one do you prefer to set up and use more often when you go camping?
That's a really tough question, because I think for me, my Snow Peak setup is very broad. And so we talked about this yesterday, where a lot of times I'm picking and choosing different gear depending on the type of camping trip that I want to have, the type of experience that I'm trying to create, whether that's with who I'm camping with or what we're doing. I think generally speaking, a tarp is going to be more all-purpose, right? Even if I have a shelter, there's still going to be a tarp there. But the opposite isn't always true. Like, the amount of times where I've had a shelter and no tarp, I don't know if it's ever happened. The tarp is just kind of always there. And so I think, especially, for people watching this video, like if you're new, like I think a tarp is probably the first non-tent piece of camp furniture or construction that you can come into.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. When I first started my Snow Peak journey, like I was very, very into tarp. And speaking of tarp, we're under a Kogi XL right now, and it's great. It's great for two people. Yeah. It's fire resistant, so you can have a fire pit underneath it. So it's a really great product. But definitely when especially in the Pacific Northwest, when it rains a lot, you just want to pitch that tarp to have some kind of shelter, and then you can pitch your tent afterwards. Yep. You can put all your packing gear underneath the tarp to keep it dry while you set up your tent and load whatever stuff you have inside a tent to keep it dry. So definitely a tarp is really helpful. But, I always thought of like using a tarp as like a summer or spring or summer kind of thing because you don't need, it isn't that cold, right? Yeah. But definitely recently, because I have a baby, even in the summer, like I think for me using a shelter is just kind of like my thing now. Yep. And the reason for that is because even in the summer and the spring, there are a lot of mosquitoes. Like shelter really has mesh panels to keep all of that out. So, but definitely one of the big downside of using a shelter is you can't have a like wood fire inside a shelter. So you would have to use a wood stove or something like that. Yeah. And wood stove takes a little more effort in setting up and all that good stuff. So definitely shelter, definitely for sure in the winter, and tarp for spring and summer is my go-to.
Yeah.
But I still prefer more shelter over tarp. But I used to be a tarp guy.
And I think you hit on something there that it took me a little while to come around to, which is the tarp in the summer. Because to me, it was kind of like, at first I thought, oh, tarp when it's raining, so that's going to be like a fall winter thing to keep me dry. But as I've used it more, keeping the sun off of me, keeping me cooler, especially when you put this takibi lining in. Even if you don't have a fire under here, it really helps cut down on the light.
Oh, yeah.
And it can be, 5-10 degrees cooler under the tarp.
Wow.
And the opposite's true too, right? Like right now when we've got a fire going, and it's kind of dying down right now, but it's definitely warmer under here than it is if you step 5 feet.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. Definitely. It truly is helpful.
Yeah.
Yep. How about your favorite cooking gear? What's your favorite cooking gear? I'm talking about like pot pants and things that you use to cook with.
That's a tough one. I actually don't use my favorite, or at least my favorite piece of cooking equipment is not Snow Peak. It's a big heavy cast iron pan.
Oh.
And I love it for camping because you can do anything with it. I use it on the gas, no problem. I've used it on charcoal barbecues. I've thrown it in the fire. It just takes it all, and it doesn't stop working. And so because of that, I love how versatile it is. That big size, you can do anything with it. We've cooked pizzas in it. Like, we have a Kogi grill, which is this really big Snow Peak grill. And you throw it on top and you just kind of let it be.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I also like cast iron, but I actually use Snow Peak's cast iron because I've used the other American brand cast iron, and for me it was too big. And that's my thing. It's like not really my style, but definitely the appealing part about the Snow Peak cast iron is that like it's smaller and the shape is a little more unique. So what it is that we cook a lot of rice, and we don't bake anything. Like you mentioned baking pizza. Like we don't do that, but we definitely cook a lot of rice, and then we add stuff on top of the rice to cook with it. So I think cast iron allows you to bake like meats per se, and I love like just putting on the takibi and then putting like charcoal on top, so that way it like just kind of it acts like an oven where it kind of cooks all side like really crispy, makes your meat, especially pork belly, makes it super crispy. But I gotta say that like the size of the Snow Peak's cast iron is the reason why I choose Snow Peak's cast iron over some of the others. And the coating's really good too, but like with all cast iron material, you got to take care of it. You got to like season it, keep it out of moisture and all that good stuff if you want to keep it for a long time. But it is a lifetime kind of like heirloom that you can pass down to your children, right?
Exactly.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. What about your favorite burner?
I think this one's pretty easy. For me, it's the flat burner, which you've got over there. It's super compact. It fits with the IGT. It puts out a good amount of heat. It's not the hottest burner that Snow Peak offers, but it's more than enough for most of what I do. And it's really versatile, and it's also really customizable. I'm not sure, if a lot of your viewers like pay attention to some of the third-party products that are out there, but there's covers, there's different grill grades. There's windscreens made out of all sorts of different materials. It's really its own platform and base for however you want to cook. Yeah,
for sure. I have the flat burner. It's actually my stable. I bring it with me in every camping trip. But I gotta say that like my favorite burner is the double burner.
Really?
That thing is a beast. And the reason why I like it so much is that like with flat burner, I cook a lot of things, and with flat burner I have to take turn cooking certain things. Like for example, I want to cook rice, but I also want to stir fry something. So I would need another burner anyway. So the double burner actually makes it really convenient for me to just, cook two things at once. And especially when I'm group camping, it's really, really awesome to kind of like get multiple things going for a large group. So definitely the double burner is my favorite. It is heavy and it's big. And it's also, the price is kind of like pretty up there for, I think, $500 or something like that. Definitely not the cheapest, but definitely very convenient. It's also very powerful.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And it's inverted, so it does work better in the cold.
Yep.
But if you're new to this, if you want 2 burners, what's the benefit of doing, for you, a dual burner over, say, 2 flat burners?
More power, and I don't have to. Actually, you know, to be frank, I really do not like packing up the flat burner because you have to fold all the legs.
You have to turn the thing.
You gotta like fold the legs, and you gotta wrap it, and you gotta put it in a case. I don't prefer that. I mean, like putting away the Baja burner is like, I feel like much easier, and like, I used the Baja burner for the longest time, but it's discontinued. I still have it, but it's just like putting it away is not great.
Yeah.
That's my only dislike about the flat burner. But otherwise, it's a great burner.
Yeah.
Yep, I have it. That's a staple. I use it all the time. It's probably my most often used Snow Peak burner, with all being said. I know, right? Yeah. Okay, so let's see here. Let's talk about lighting. Oh, what do we have here? What's going on here? Are you in a castle or something?
Yeah, I know, right? When we were at Snow Peak Way last October, I was carrying this around, and I had someone who was like, I feel like I'm looking at like a old ghost wandering through the halls. This is 4 of the Snow Peak Mini Flame. They released them, like this one at the top is a festival edition that comes out just about every year. But then we just have some accessories from a company called Camping Moon that create this extension, this 4-in-1. So it has 4 valves on it that allow you to then have all these burners on it. We have a smaller extension. We then have a Camping Moon bracket, which is what's got this actually secured to the Jacaro. Sorry, I'm spilling your water over there.
No, you're not.
Which is nice too, because, you know, something ridiculous like this, you don't want it knocking over. And so it's really fun to be able to play with. And again, like going back to that notion of like starting with one thing and then expanding on it, I think what's really so much fun about all of this is that, you know, a couple years ago, if you would have asked me how to use a Lindell valve as the base of a system, I would have been like, what are you talking about? But here it is. And you can actually still get you can get tabletops that use this type of screw mount, and you can get adapters so that if you wanted 3 candles down here, but maybe you wanted like the Snow Peak Celus LED light on top, you can get a tripod adapter. So you could have an LED on top and then the candles down below. And so you can really customize with this type of stuff as well.
Yeah. Well, this runs on gas, obviously. And, you know, what I like about this is that like it has the kind of like the candle flickering. So it definitely, it adds to the mood. It's not like bright or anything, but it definitely makes it feel more homey or like cozy at the campsite. And this is the new addition to our lighting from Snow Peak, is the battery version of this, right?
Yeah.
And how do you like this so far? What do you think?
I really like it. I think it's a really unique take on LED lighting, especially for camp. I like how it's swappable. And I think one of the things I like the most is that the battery bank has multiple in and out ports. That I can have the light going. I can be charging my phone.
Yeah.
And I could, if I have like, you have a, you know, EcoFlow power station over there, I could be charging this battery, charging my phone, and have the light going, just because there's so many different ports. And then also because of the locking system that they put on it, you can pick it up by the light itself.
Right.
Which, if this just used a USB-C connection, you couldn't do.
Right. And you don't have to burn your hand. Yep. And not to mention, you can use this in your tent without having to worry about carbon monoxide. Yep, because it's all battery operated. But actually, my favorite feature about this light is this rainbow effect. So if you turn it, you want to turn yours, Nate? Like, you can change the lighting, and you can get different rainbowy effect. And obviously, the white light is the brightest, but that's pretty cool, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't see any lighting out there that has this kind of rainbow effect as you change the temperature of the light. So I think that's my favorite feature of this. And I feel like this battery size, like 15,000, I think. It's kind of like the perfect size to sit on the countertop. It's not like too big, and it's pretty light. So, I mean, I do like this light a lot.
And the other thing that I like about it is because it is just a gas canister in size and shape and everything. You know, I have so many like little leather gas canister covers. Slip right on, it dresses it up a little bit, you know.
You have more different designs for the cover?
Oh yeah, they come in all sorts of different leather colors. They come in different stitching types. There's cloth ones out there. There's a number of different varieties, and yeah, they're great.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's unique because nobody makes a battery like in this shape and size. That's the thing. That's why, a lot of people say, well, the battery is pretty expensive, but it has multiple usage. So I think to a certain extent, it is worth the investment for this size. So definitely, it is more expensive you comparing to like other battery packs that are just like your normal shape and all that stuff. But this is not my favorite camping light from Snow Peak. You want to guess what it is?
I'm gonna guess the Celus.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Is that your favorite too?
It's really good.
It's really good. I mean, I was pleasantly surprised because I didn't think much of it when I saw it, but until like I actually got to use it, and like it has so many like it's multifunctional, so it has so many functions. Like you can use it as an area like under a tarp. It can light up a shelter pretty well. You can use it as a flashlight. I mean, not like a super straightforward pointing flashlight, but it's really, really good.
Yeah.
And the battery lasts pretty long. Was it like over 30 hours
Yeah.
or something on like medium or low? Yeah, so it's really, really great. What are your reasons for liking it?
My favorite is that it offers both up and down light.
Oh,
and
yes.
I think that's really rare in a camping light. Like we have the Hazukis up here, and those are obviously down only. This is kind of out. But the Celus can give that uplight, which offers that just general ambiance, and then it also offers the downlight, which, especially if it's hanging, can be much more focused on one area.
For sure.
And I think that's just something that's really rare in a camping light.
Right.
Like so many camping lights are kind of one or the other.
Right. And not to mention that it could be mounted multiple ways. It could hang, and then you can mount it on like the TTA or like on a tripod, for example, camera tripod.
Yep.
So it's very, very versatile. Definitely my favorite light. But I just got to say that if you run out of battery, it takes 8 hours to charge.
It's a slow charge.
Yeah, it's a very, very slow charge. But, it shouldn't be a problem. It should last you one camping trip if you just use it during the nighttime. 2 nights, no problem at all.
Or, plug it into your battery bank during the day.
Oh, yes, you should get one of these battery banks,
There
right?
you go.
Okay, what else do we have on the list here? Do you prefer gas lighting or like this, or do you prefer like the more battery stuff?
This is probably the hardest question to answer. I think, generally speaking, I prefer like a gas lantern. I like the hum. I like the kind of flicker and the glow and the really warm color temperature. However, I recognize that by every measure, LED lighting is just better. It's going to be brighter. It's going to offer more customization in terms of the light. It's cheaper to operate. You don't have to buy gas or worry about gas running out or it being too cold to run the gas. You don't have to worry about replacing mantles or like glass globes. Like, this is the struggle that I face every time. And so usually what I'll do is, I'll have like a number of the LED stuff for actual like bright lighting. And then I'll bring like one gas lantern to give again kind of that ambiance.
Well, I'm a battery light kind of guy, but it's just the convenience of having a battery and just plug and go, charge, and then it's brighter, like you said. All the things that you said is correct. But I will have to say that gas lantern, just as you said, gives it that ambience. Yeah. And it's just like kind of like the things. It gives you kind of like a nostalgic kind of feeling, where you're still using the ancient technology that's still really, really good, right? So it's fun. It's fun to use.
It's the same as like a fire, right?
Yeah.
Like there's fun to that little bit of it being kind of archaic.
Yeah, for sure. So definitely, I mean, everybody's got their own preference, and whatever it is, it's all good. Let's talk about some of the shelters and gear for people who've been collecting Snow Peak for a long time, and they got an Alpha Breeze, or maybe they got the Kogi Hexa.
Yep.
What's out there that they can think about upgrading, and why should they upgrade?
I think I'll go back to something I touched on a little bit earlier, which is just that looking at the camping equipment that you own as a portfolio of options for how you want that camping experience to be. Camping experiences don't all have to be alike. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that if you have a flow and that's what you want. But for me, I get a lot of joy about, we're going to go really food focused on this one. And so maybe I want to bring a shelter and a low IGT setup, and we're all going to sit in the shelter and kind of have this more communal cooking experience. Or maybe like we're doing right here, we've got the fire, we've got a tarp, we don't really need a shelter. Like we wouldn't use a shelter on this trip.
Right.
And so that's where I see that big benefit coming from in terms of expanding and thinking about how you want to camp and what is the gear you're picking up to attain those goals.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. It's all about choices. It's not like, I mean, I have a lot of snow peak gear and you do too, but it's not like we bring it with us in every single camping trip. My garage is not cleaned out. You know, it's like Korogi is not cleaned out of camping gear every single time, you know? But definitely it's the choices that it's the choices and having flexibility and choosing the right gear for the right time, for the right situation, and for the right people to enjoy it with, right? Sometimes you bring more, sometimes you bring less, and you make the right selection based on the gear that you have. So with that being said, you know, like a lot of people will ask like, well, can I use the Alpha Breeze in the winter? Like, absolutely, yes. It's not a 4-season tent, but there's nothing wrong with using an Alpha Breeze. It'll keep you warm and everything like that, right? But definitely the pro level stuff from Snow Peak has better coating, but you know, it's all subtle stuff, right? If you touch it, you can feel a slight thickness and everything like that, but you'll notice it once you camp heavily in it. Like the more pro shelters are meant for like people who camp more regularly, and in rougher environment, 4 seasons. And speaking of which, with the pro shelters, what's your favorite?
So it's weird because my favorite is one that I actually don't own. So I have a Spearhead Pro and the Land-Based 6, which are both great shelters. But my favorite is the Landlock. And it's my favorite for 2 reasons. The first is that it can really do it all. It's got that inner tent that it comes with, so if you want to use it as both a shelter and a sleeping area, you can, or you don't. But you don't have to set up that inner tent if you just want more space. But the Landlock is really what started shelters. Like, that was the first one. And if you go camping in Japan, back in October, I was fortunate enough to go to a Snow Peak Way outside of Tokyo. There was a pretty small campground that they were at. There were, I think, 50 groups. 30 of those groups had a Landlock.
Wow.
Like, it is that prolific.
Yeah.
And when I think about camping equipment too, you know, we talk about like repairability and longevity, and like these are all things that are really important in terms of like sustainability as well. You don't want to be replacing this stuff all the time, and if one part fails, you have to buy a whole new one. And so having a product that's been relatively unchanged in the market for almost 20 years now, like, there's parts galore for it, whether it's on the secondhand market or, you know, you hit up Snow Peak directly and talk to the repair people about it. Like, it just offers it all.
Yeah. And, you know, what I like about the Landlock, I actually don't own a Landlock yet, but, you know, what I do like about it is that for $2,000, you get an inner room. And it comes with everything ready for you to go. So you don't have, the inner room is not separate from the shelter itself.
Exactly.
So it's an all-in-one inclusive package, and I think that's great. That's a great deal. For $2,000, you can get all of that. It definitely is a humongous shelter. I mean, if you don't use the inner room, you just want to use it as a hangout area.
Huge.
You can have this like a long Game of Thrones style dining table. You assemble all the IGTs. It makes, I mean, it can fit, I would dare to say, 20 people in there probably.
Easily. Yeah.
If you assemble it correctly, with a straight dining table line. So definitely the Landlock is humongous.
Yes.
I mean, very, very comfortable camping. Have you set up a Landlock before?
I have, yeah.
Is it easy to set up? What do you think about setting it up and all that stuff?
I don't know if easy is the right word, because I think when you talk about any shelter of that size, right? It's not a quick pop-up, you know, kind of Coleman tent.
Yeah.
But as far as shelters go, it's not hard. Like, I would feel comfortable doing it by myself if I needed to. The architecture of it is really straightforward. It's easy to understand. Despite its size, there actually aren't that many poles.
Okay.
That are involved in the setup of it, and they're all clearly marked and color coded, so it's really easy to know what goes where.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds good, because I was a little intimidated because, you know, the Landlock's like pretty high, pretty tall, so I'm just worried about like being able to reach up top. And
I believe in you.
Yeah.
You got this.
But with all like those big shelters, I find the biggest part is not applying the poles and the tension and everything, but it's applying the fly sheet.
Oh, yeah.
Because you gotta like wrap it over. It takes me longer to like do the fly sheet than any other parts in the shelter setup. So for me, that's difficult. But definitely my favorite pro shelter is the Living Shell Long Pro. Or actually, I just prefer the Living Shell in general. I just like that shape, and like the A-frame is so easy to set up. And it's very similar to the Alpha Breeze. So that's like the Living Shell to me is kind of like my Alpha Breeze. Because it's got the 2 A-frames on the side, and then you just gotta do some loops, add some extra loops around.
The story that I heard about how the Alpha Breeze came to be was Toru, the president of Snow Peak, was told, hey, we need a tent for Americans where it's a little bit taller. That's what they want. He comes into the room, takes a look at kind of the LSLP, the Living Shell Long Pro's architecture of the double A-frame. Kind of cuts off one A-frame and goes, there you go, and walks out. And it was apparently, from what I've been told, it was like a 5-10 minute long meeting and design session. It was just that straightforward, and like, we know we've got it with the Living Shell Long Pro. We're just going to make it a little bit shorter.
Yeah, it's definitely a very attractive tent for me. And it's beautiful to look at. And the Living Shell Long Pro has a lot of mesh panels. And I just love how like you can adjust which panels you want to open it, whether it's like summer or like winter, you can open or close, and you can have views and keep mosquitoes out and all that stuff. And you know, it is a $2,000 shelter, and some people might say, well, that's expensive. But if you look at the craftsman, I mean, imagine doing the sewing for each mesh panel is not really easy to like get it right and like have it apply the right tension, and you know, have the fabric not be all crunched up and everything like that. So I think there's a lot of craftsmanship behind these shelters, including the Landlock itself too. So
and you know, like I was saying, the Living Shell Long Pros, I think it came out in 2004, so it's over 20 years old, and it's got that same longevity in terms of like parts availability and all of that great stuff. And you're totally right. Like, I think the other thing that I would layer into when you're talking about like a cost benefit is Snow Peak offers a fantastic warranty, a lifetime warranty. And so if something does go wrong, you're not just buying this and then out on your own. You know?
Right, for sure. You know, the other thing that I want to talk about is, you know, people who've been collecting Snow Peak stuff for a while. Let's talk about festival items. What are festival items, Nate?
Festival is twice a year. There's a spring festival and then a fall festival or autumn festival. And they're really fun because this is an opportunity that Snow Peak takes to create products as kind of a testing bed to see, hey, here's an idea we had. Maybe it's not like a full production thing, but let's just try it. And sometimes it's pretty simple, like they'll, you know, do just a different color. They did the stacking shelf containers in black, and then they did them in green. They've done the Jacaro in black. You have the My Table in black over there. So they do stuff like that. But then they also do things that are just completely new. They made the Jacaro Bridge, which turns this into a 2-unit IGT frame. They've done different bamboo extensions for the IGT. The infamous mosquito pig comes out as part of the festival collection every so often. It's a blast. I love it just because it's kind of an unbridled creativity. And even if it's something that I'm not interested in, it still makes me happy that it's like this is just something to test and play with. And I think that level of lightheartedness is something that very few companies today still exhibit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like festival items are kind of like collecting Nike shoes in a way, right? So you know, you just try to get those limited items that have a limited stock, and they are only sold during certain time frames. So I learned my lesson. If you think you need it but you're not sure, if you're unsure, just get it anyways, and then you know, you can think about it later. Because there are definitely some items that I should have bought, but I was like on the fence about it. I didn't buy it, and now it's sold out. Like, for example, the black Jacaro table, was on the fence about it, didn't buy it. Now I want a black Jacaro table, but you know.
You're not going to find one.
I'm not, well, I mean, I can find one for double the price. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So that's what it is that like people buy festival items and they might hang on to it, and later on you can't buy it no more. So if you want it, you got to pay the markup. So that's what it is with collectible limited edition kind of items and all that stuff. But I think that's part of Snow Peak culture, and it makes it like really fun because people who collect festival items, you know, they are hardcore Snow Peak people. You know, they're very interested in the brand, they're interested in the culture, and they collect it, and they're proud of their collection because it's something that like you meet other people, you can show that, hey, I got this limited 2019 festival whatever item that I got, and I'm still using it, and it's great. And what do you have for your festival item?
Yeah.
So it's a great talking point, and it brings people together. So I think of it as a positive.
Yeah, I love it.
But I guess a lot of people ask, like, why doesn't Snow Peak make festival items permanent? What do you think, Nate?
Well, that is $1 million question. I think we've got a great example right across here, which is the infamous IGT paper towel holder.
Yeah.
It's a great product. It's a simple design, but it's super functional. You have that little metal flap, which keeps your paper towels from fluttering all over the place. It connects to the IGT, to the Chikaro. You can use it with TTA. Like, you can use it in so many different ways. And they released it once and then released it again last year in Japan only in the black edition, which you have. The US never got that one for whatever reason.
Yep.
I don't have an answer for you. I really wish I knew, because there is some stuff in the festival line that absolutely should be a permanent part of the collection.
Well, I mean, I guess it's like collecting shoes, right? Sometimes they re-release the limited edition.
The Jordan 1s.
Yeah, the Jordan 1s again, but like otherwise they limit it. It's part of the brand culture, I guess. So, but anyways, it's all, I enjoy it.
Yeah.
I think it's great. And for me, like limiting it, I feel a little special to be able to have a piece that is limited. So for me, I think it's very special. I kind of like it that they don't make it available all the time, because it's a talking point for me to geek out with other snow peakers and kind of tell my story, basically, and how I got it, and whether, like I would be like, oh, I'm trying to buy this, but I missed the buy time, so, and then I have to like get it from Japan and all that stuff. And so it's just great talking points and great way to tell stories at Snow Peak Way and other camping events that we have meet up with snow peakers.
Yeah, I totally love that as a talking point. I think the other fun thing is, because they are limited, you see them used in more unique ways, right? I think a lot of times, like, people will get into the IGT and it's customizable, but you might kind of start to see variations on the same theme, but then you throw in like a festival item or two and it just blows it out of the water.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, we're about the end of the talk, the fireside talk right now. Do you have any takeaways that you want to give to our audience?
I think the easiest one is just, if you're nervous, like, don't be afraid to dive in. You really can't go wrong, and it's okay to start with a little bit more of a narrow focus, and know that because all of this stuff integrates, it's a system. It's like buying one Lego brick. You don't have to worry that Lego brick is going to connect to another Lego brick later on, or another Lego set. They're always going to work together.
Yep.
And so if you're curious about it, dive on in, get an IGT starter set, get a Takibi, get a Hexatarp, whatever it might be, and figure it out. Use it, understand more about how you like to camp and what you want, and then just go from there. The sky's the limit. Yeah,
I agree with you, because like that's the special thing about Snow Peak is that it's modularity, so you're not missing out in anything. I mean, things are going to fit together. It's just a matter of like, how does it fit together and how you're going to use it. So I think if you're new to Snow Peak, definitely take your time to figure it out. Start out with something simple, like the kitchen starter set that you mentioned. I started out with the entry IGT because they didn't have the kitchen starter set back then, but if they had it, I would have gotten that, because that got me going. Has everything all in one. And definitely as you work your way up, as you get to know more products from Snow Peak and you're realizing that I'm using it this way and that way, definitely hit up social media. Follow other Snow Peakers to get ideas from them. Definitely follow the Snow Peak official channels. Follow Snow Peak USA. Follow all the Snow Peak accounts in Japan. Because they give you a really nice preview of what's coming up ahead for festival items and what's going on for the new year 2025, 2026. So definitely they have like stuff that's going to be coming. So engage in the community. Like, there's a lot of excited Snow Peakers. In America, Japan, Korea. The Snow Peak community is like worldwide, and I think it's like, just be active if you want to kind of know more about the Snow Peak camping style culture. So that's what I got to say, and I think the Snow Peak community is a great community to be in, and I'm really happy that I'm a part of the Snow Peak community and make friends with Nate and plenty of other people that I've met at Campfield and other Snow Peak camping events.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's all we have for tonight. So thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you in the next video.
Thank you.
Bye.